Hello, welcome to Oxford Heirlooms. In this video, we're going to get ready to pleat the jumpers. Now, I've got a couple of fabric markings that I need to transfer. I've got the back of my jumper and the front of my jumper. I don't have anything to mark on the front of the jumper, but I do have the placket location on the back of the jumper. I'm going to take a pin out right there. Okay, so let me mark the placket. I've actually got 4 layers of fabric here because I went ahead and doubled up my fabric and cut both jumpers out at one time just to save a little bit of time. Okay, so that's my back jumper and my front jumper. Okay, then I've got my sleeve, which I really don't need to mark anything, but I do need to note which is the back of the sleeve, because it does have a front and a back. Okay, so I'm going to put a B on each of these pieces. Okay. And then I've got my neckbands and my plackets. Now I need to go to the sewing machine and I need to sew some of the seams. I need to sew the front seam together. Let me move these out of the way. Because this, unlike a bishop dress, it's not created on a fold. So I need to sew this front seam together. When I get down here to the curve, I'm going to double up on the thread just to give it a little strength in the crotch. I won't be sewing the back seam yet, but when I get the front seam sewn, I'll start to sew the sleeves together to the front and then the sleeves together to the back. And then I'll come back out and I'll pleat. But I'm going to the sewing machine, so I'll be right back. Okay, I've been to the ironing board and I have sewn the sleeves and the fronts and the backs together. And as you can see, I've pleated and tied off the first of the 2 jumpers. And I did manage to get this micro check pleated where it's not moiré very badly at all. And let me kind of explain how I did that. Okay, now for starters, my smocking plate that I'm using, Candy Cane Bishops by Terry Collins, has 8 smocking rows. So one of the things I'm doing is I'm only putting 8 pleating threads into my pleater. Now I've got my little jumper wrapped up on a 5/8 inch wooden dowel. Okay, I'll put the jumper into the smocking machine. Okay, now I've got, like I said, I've got 8 rows with threads in it. So I'm going to run this in going at row 8.5. Now the trick to getting it to not moiré very badly is to make sure that your checks continually go through the pleater where the grain of the check is parallel to the roller. If it gets catty-cornered, you're going to start to see that moiré effect. Okay, so I'm going to carefully, I'm doing 2 things at one time. I'm keeping it lined up on pleat number 8.5. And then I'm making sure that my checks go in, parallel to the rollers. So I'm going kind of slow so that I can continually look at this. Now when I get up to my first seam, I press my seams towards the sleeves. So they're going inside the sleeves. So I'll slow down just a little bit, going over those seams so that I don't end up breaking my needles, and continue to get my checks going in where they're parallel to the roller of the pleating machine. Just every once in a while, you know, pull the fabric off of the needles. Now with this being a 1/32 micro check, it's a lot less likely to moire than some other checks or ginghams that you use. But the only way to really get gingham to not moire at all is to pull them up by hand. And that's, as you can well imagine, is fairly time consuming. And coming up to my next seam, I need to just make sure that it still stays pressed toward the sleeve side and go over the needle slowly so that I don't accidentally break a needle. Okay, this is going to take me a little while to get this all pleated and off the needle, so I'll be right back. Okay, I've got the second of the jumpers off of the pleater needles. Now what I have done preliminarily is I pulled out the pleater threads till I had about 1 1/8 of an inch of unpleated fabric on this, which would be the right side on the back. I have pulled out 3/8 of an inch over here on what will be the left side of the bag. This gives me 3/8 of an inch for the seam of the placket, plus 5/8 of an inch to make a buttonhole over here on the left, and then 3/8 of an inch to make the seam for the placket on this other end. Okay, now I'm lining this up with my neckband piece because as I've mentioned before, I don't smock tight, so I tend to just pull my pleats up and smock. If you are used to using a blocking board and you know you're a tight pleater, you know, by all means, use a blocking board and fan those pleats out. But I've never had to do that. And I think that's because the woman who taught me to smock years ago spent weeks working on my tension. Pay close attention to my tension. That kind of rhymes, doesn't it? Okay, so 2 threads at a time, I'm tying an overhand knot. And you'll notice my knots are on the outside of the fabric, not on the inside. Okay, I've got one more to tie. Oops, I missed one thread. Let me tie that again. Gotta tie 2 threads together, not 1 thread. There. Okay, now I'll be able to find my center front because I've got a seam at the center front. So I'll pull that apart and I'll know where the center of my smocking design is going to go. But like I said, this is roughly the same width as the neckband piece. Okay, all right, so now I'm ready to go and start smocking. And since I have 2 bishop jumpers to do, it's going to take me a little while to get all the smocking done. But, you know, I will be back when it's time to continue to create these jumpers. Thank you.